Alright guys, here's my freezer that I'm going to turn into a worm bin. Luckily this one actually already has a drain in it right there on the very bottom, and I can actually just open it right here. So I got it propped up on a pallet and on some bricks. That way I can, if I need to drain it, I can collect the leachate with a bucket underneath it. But we got it leveled out, or at least it's actually going forward a little bit like that. That way it goes in, it does drain in that hole. But I wanted to say a couple other things. So I have done this before with another freezer that did not have this drain on it, and I just drilled a hole in the bottom, and I stuck a pipe through, and I put silicone gel on it, and I think the gel actually broke, and I now have like leachate leaching into the insulation, I think, into the freezer. It's not a huge problem. It still drains, but this is a cool thing I found. Nature's Always Right guy uses them a lot. They're called uniseals, and what you would do is you drill a hole right here in the bottom, and then you just stick this uniseal in. You'd hammer it in with a mallet, and then basically you put a pipe through it. So this is 1.5 inches inside diameter, and you put that in there, and then you put 1.5 inch pipe through and put a little fitting on it where you could turn it on and off. So if you don't have the drain on the freezer, look into these uniseal things. You can also try the silicone gel like I did, but I think these will just work better, and you kind of avoid having random chemicals being in contact with your worm bin. But next we're gonna put some river rocks in them and put some mesh screen and move on to that process. This is just river rock. Just want to get a good layer of this on the bottom. Put one more bag in here. So we got our river rock in there. So if you watch videos online on turning a freezer into a worm bin, almost everybody has a different way of doing it. I have done it with this method before, and I've had it working for about 5 years. I've had hiccups here and there, but it still works generally. I saw one guy who drilled holes into the top part of the freezer. One of the reasons we're putting these worms in an old freezer because it gets cold here where we are in South Carolina. We're using the freezer for insulation to keep the worms warm in the wintertime. So I really don't want to drill holes in the top because that would just take away the insulation value. I'm not sure where the guy was who did that, but it gets cold here, so I'm not going to do that. He didn't put any rocks in the bottom, which the rocks in the bottom, in addition to keeping the water from soaking up, from drowning the worms basically in their own worm castings, the rocks also have air spaces in them, and so that way the worms will be able to get air from underneath and from above. We're not going to fill this completely up with worms because they do need oxygen. We'll probably just, stop it about right there, so just give them some good space. In the summertime, we're just going to leave this open like this. We're just going to prop something in right here and leave it open. The worms shouldn't crawl out. I've never had an issue with them crawling out, and I leave mine open in summertime. In the winter, we're going to close it. I'll keep it closed for a few days, and I've never had any problem with it. When I feed it and water it, we'll open it up, and it'll get some fresh air then. Maybe open it up every few days just to, give them a little bit more air. Yeah, just some more thoughts for what I've seen online and what we're doing here, because this is different than most everything I've seen. So yeah, we're just gonna get the mesh on in here on top of the rock. This is a mesh screen, guys. like for a screen door. Just using these scissors to cut it. Try to get the mesh up to the, stuck to the side up it as much as possible. If some of it gets down in there, some of the worm castings get down in there, the rocks itself will filter it, but you still want to try your best to keep that stuff from falling down in there. And these rocks are going to stay in here and weigh it down. Next, I'm going to add some cardboard. I didn't mean to fill it up this much. This has been soaking for about 2 days. And we'll just take this out and layer that in the bin. Alright guys, so y'all don't have to do this, but we have some coconut coir here. And I'm going to add this to the worm bin for bedding material. I've grown mushrooms in this coconut coir before. I have some videos on that if y'all want to check that out. And mushrooms like a specific moisture, and it's about the same as to what worms like. You want to be able to squeeze it and not have too much water run out, or actually really not have any water run out. If you squeeze it really hard, you might get a couple drops, but that's pretty much the moisture level that worms really like. One of the big problems when people keep worms is they actually put too much water in them. But anyways, the way to get the perfect moisture just right off the bat, you can just put the coconut coir in here, fill it up, and just hope you get the moisture right and let it drain if you put too much water in there. But if you add 5 times the amount of water as the coconut coir weighs, it'll give you that perfect amount of moisture. I can't remember how much the coconut coir weighs, but it was equal to 8.8 quart if it's not perfect. We'll just let it drain a little bit. Y'all don't need to get that math perfect. And that should be about right. We're gonna let this sit for a few hours to let it soak up, and then I'll take it out and I'll show you kind of what the moisture content needs to be. Never add dry material to your worm bin, including the cardboard, the coir. They don't like that. This is the one that I've had for about 5 years. It's a lot bigger. It's shallower though, in comparison to the width that it is. But there's the drain. Like I said, I've never actually got any leachate out of here because I don't think it's sealed properly. So if I might actually take this one apart at some point, and I'm going to use those uni seals that I showed you. This is what it looked like. I put this pipe in here for air, but I really don't think it's necessary. You can see the worms moving actually since I opened it, because it was dark in here. They get on the surface. I just fed them right here about a week ago, so I know the worms are going to be right here. So I can, that's just, if you're ever looking for the worms specifically, dig where you feed them and they'll be right there. There's a lot of worms in there. Oh man. Sorry guys. Sorry y'all. Disturb you. Got a new home coming. There's a couple maggots where the food is, but it's not a lot. The population of wigglers is really good in here. Alright. It should be enough. That'll get it started. I'm probably gonna fill that spot up with some wet cardboard and then layer like maybe some sand over it. This is what your final product will look like. These are worm castings. They are wondrous to start seeds in and just to put in the garden in general. Vermicompost is what this is called. And keep in mind, I actually don't put any soil in or anything really in here. It's just sand, cardboard, and food scraps basically, and some green material from time to time, and that's what comes out. I have put wood chip mulch in here before too. Alright guys, so I'm taking this PVC pipe. I don't know if this is quite necessary, but I do it, and I'm going to do it in this one just because this is a very deep chest freezer, and I'm a little bit worried about if we are to fill it up a good bit, which I don't think we are, but who knows. Well, I can't get it past there anyways, but I just want to have a little bit more air being in the system because worms have to breathe. So I'm just going to put that right there in the middle. You can see I put these little tiny holes in it. These are like a drill bit used for like pilot holes for screws. So they're small holes. But that's just going to sit right there. And then I'm going to build my bedding and stuff around this, and then the bedding will eventually hold it in place. So yeah, we're gonna add that to it. Not necessary though. If you don't feel like doing it, it probably will work otherwise. Now this cardboard, as I said, it's been soaked for 2 days. There's not a lot of ink on these cardboards. You don't want a ton of ink. This is getting annoying. No waxiness on the cardboard or anything. The worms like to get up in these ridges right here, and they like live in that bedding, or they bed in those little ridges. They'll end up eating this cardboard too. From here, I'm just going to stack cardboard on this side, and I'm going to actually put the worms down here. I'm putting all the sand on one side. I don't really like putting sand too much, like all over the place, because the worms don't like being in straight sand. It cuts their skin up, but they need this. They need sand in their gizzards to be able to process their food. So make sure you add sand for sure. Gonna be good with that. Here's the coconut coir. Look at how I squeeze it, and I can get some drops out, but you don't want it too moist. Like I said, this chest freezer does have a drainage system, so I can just open it up if it's too wet. I'm just going to cover the cardboard, because if you don't cover the cardboard, it will dry out. And you don't want it to dry out. So that'll be good with that. I'm just going to add the worms in this hole over here. Go free, guys. There's probably a couple hundred worms in there. I'm just going to cover them up as well. Now we're gonna put some green material and I'm gonna put a watermelon in here for them to eat. I'm a little bit worried that they're not going to be able to eat that watermelon in time, and if you overfeed your worms, that you will get maggots. But I've had maggots living in my worm bin together with my worms for years, and I use the worm castings, and it's always worked out really good. Just if you don't, just try not to overfeed them. When you overfeed them, that's when you invite those maggots in. But once you get back to a better feeding schedule for the worms, the maggots they'll be limited a lot more. You'll get more maggots as well if you bury the food. Worms don't like citrus, onions, anything sour, anything like that. They don't really like. They really love melons, sugary sweet things. A lot of people will take their greens like this and they'll churn it up in a blender and then they'll add it, and they really like that because they can get through that slurry really well. My worm bin, I can put a half a watermelon in there and they'll eat it in 3 or 4 days. So I'll come in here, I'll keep an eye on the watermelon, making sure they're moving through all this stuff. I think I'm actually going to move this watermelon over here where I actually put the worms. Yeah, that'd be better. Some more green material in that. Make sure it doesn't dry out. Yeah, and there you have it. There's some eggshells right here. That's probably another thing that I'll add just to make sure it's not too acidic. Eggshells promote a more alkaline environment. So I know y'all saw on one of my videos, I lay out eggshells on a screen and I'll let them dry, and then I crumple them up and I'll put them in my worm bin. I do that quite often because the wood chips will make a more acidic environment. Probably the coir will do the same. So yeah, probably going to add some eggshells in the next couple days as well. We're just going to close this, and during the day here and there we'll open it back up just to make sure it gets some fresh air in there. Hope y'all enjoyed it. If y'all have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try to get to them. Thank y'all for watching, and good luck. Bye bye.